Hello, it's Anna. If you're here right now, maybe there's something you've been feeling, something quiet, something you haven't quite named yet. Let's just sit with that for a moment. Some people notice that right before something shifts in their life, there's this strange stillness, like the air changes, not in a magical way, but in the way you feel it when you're sitting at your desk, staring at your phone, and you just know something's about to surface. It can feel like rereading an old message and suddenly seeing it differently, or walking home from work and realizing you've been holding your breath for weeks. One possible interpretation here is that someone in your life has been doing their own quiet work, thinking, reconsidering, and they might be getting ready to reach out, not because of fate, not because of timing, but because something in them has shifted too. You may recognize this feeling if you've ever had that moment where you just know your phone's about to light up. And then it does. It's not magic, it's just awareness. I feel like this moment is less about them and more about you noticing that you're no longer the same person who was waiting. Let me slow down for a second. Some people describe this as the moment when someone finally sees you clearly, when they come back, not assuming, not testing, but humbled. It can feel like watching someone realize that you were never the problem, that your boundaries weren't cruelty, that your silence wasn't punishment, that your distance was just protection. One symbolic layer here might be sitting across from someone and noticing the tension before they speak, that tightness in your chest, that quiet knowing that what they're about to say, you've already moved past. You may find yourself in a conversation soon where someone acknowledges something they couldn't see before. And here's the thing, you might not need to hear it anymore. Hold on. This feels important. Some people notice that the moment they stop needing an apology is the exact moment it arrives. It can feel like relief and sadness at the same time because part of you wanted this, wanted them to understand, wanted them to come back correct. But another part of you has already built something new, something that doesn't require their validation. One possible interpretation is that this experience is teaching you how to hold both, to honor what you once needed without letting it dictate what you need now. I'm not sure why, but this feels like one of those weeks where something you thought was over surfaces again. Not to pull you backward, but to show you how far you've come. You may recognize this if you've been feeling unusually clear lately, unusually steady, like you're standing on solid ground for the first time in months. And then someone from your past shows up in your notifications, or your thoughts, or an actual conversation. It can feel like a test, but maybe it's just a mirror. Some people describe getting a message is less than #0. 5 hashes greater than that says exactly what they used to pray to hear, and feeling nothing, or feeling curious but not pulled. It can feel like watching someone finally say the right thing and realizing you don't need them to anymore. One symbolic reading of this moment might be that you've become fluent in your own language. You no longer need someone else to translate your worth back to you. And if they do come back, they'll be walking into a version of you that doesn't bend. Let's pause for a moment. What does it mean when someone realizes you're not one to play with? Does it mean they finally respect you? Or does it mean you finally respect yourself so fully that their perception doesn't shake you anymore? You may find that this week, or maybe today, someone speaks to you differently, approaches you with more care, more weight, not because you demanded it, but because you stopped performing. Some people notice a shift in how they're being treated at work, in their relationships, in casual conversations. It can feel like people are suddenly listening when you speak, hesitating before they push back, watching you more closely. One possible layer here is that you've been quietly recalibrating, setting boundaries you didn't announce, walking away from things you used to tolerate, and others are starting to notice. You may recognize this as the natural consequence of choosing yourself, not loudly, not dramatically, just consistently. I feel like the message someone might bring to you soon isn't going to be what you expect. It might be softer, more honest, more vulnerable. It can feel like hearing someone admit that they misunderstood you, that they underestimated you, that they see you now. But here's where reflection deepens. Do you still need them to? Some people sit with this question and feel a surprising sense of freedom because the version of them that needed that acknowledgement no longer exists. It can feel like relief, like graduating, like finally being able to breathe fully. One symbolic interpretation might be standing in your kitchen, phone in hand, reading a message that once would have undone you, and feeling calm. Not cold, not numb, just clear. Let me slow down. This moment, whatever it is, might feel bigger than it actually is. Someone might say something that feels important, that feels like closure, that feels like validation. And you might find yourself grateful but unmoved. You may notice that you're able to listen without needing to respond immediately, without needing to fix anything, without needing to make them feel better about realizing this late. Some people describe this as a kind of quiet power, not over them, over yourself. It can feel like sitting in silence with someone and realizing you're no longer afraid of it, no longer rushing to fill it, no longer making yourself smaller to make them comfortable. One possible reading here is that you've learned to trust your own presence. And when someone finally sees that, it doesn't change you. It just confirms what you already knew. I feel like is less than #0. 5 hashes greater than. This is one of those moments where you get to choose not between them or you, but between the version of you that needed them to come back and the version of you that's been building something new. You may find that this week brings a conversation, a text, a realization, and you get to decide what that means, not what it should mean, not what it used to mean, what it means now. Some people notice that the moment they stop needing closure is the moment it arrives, and it feels different than they imagined, less dramatic, less satisfying, less necessary. It can feel like watching someone apologize for something you've already forgiven yourself for carrying. One symbolic layer might be receiving flowers for a version of you that no longer needs them. Beautiful, thoughtful, but late. Let's sit with this. What if the message someone brings you isn't meant to change anything? What if it's just meant to show you how much you've changed. You may recognize that you're no longer the person who needed their words to feel whole. And that realization might be the real message. Some people describe feeling a strange mix of emotions when someone finally gets it. Pride, sadness, relief, distance. It can feel like standing on the other side of something you thought would break you and realizing you're still here. Stronger, softer, more yourself. One possible interpretation is that this moment is less about them coming back correct and more about you recognizing that you never needed correcting. You were always enough. They're just finally able to see it. I'm not sure why, but this feels like a week where old things resurface, not to haunt you, not to pull you back, but to remind you how far you've walked. You may find yourself in a moment soon where someone says something kind, something real, something you once desperately wanted to hear, and you might just smile and move forward anyway. Take a breath. Whatever unfolds, whether it's a message, a conversation, or just a quiet realization, it's yours to interpret. What resonates is yours to hold. What doesn't is yours to release. Nothing here is written in stone. You get to decide what this moment means for you.